Time for another gun show report. This one kind of took me by surprise. It was a gun show in Burlington, North Carolina. I didn't even know they were having it because I don't kind of keep up with the gun shows. I do most of my buying of the budget guns online, and like I said, I was surprised when I went to the one gun show and picked up the two AR pistols that some of the dealers were selling things that was basically the same as when the online retailers are selling off stuff. Basically a lot less than what you find at a gun show or retail store, big box store. So what happened was I went to American Legion. There was another smaller venue that they have around Greensboro that a couple guys were going to. I don't go to them. I kind of went to several of the shows, and really the people there don't have any of the milsurp or guns that I'd be interested in. So I kind of don't go to that venue. So when I heard about this one, I said, well, that's not that far away. It's like a 30-minute drive for me. And I said, I wouldn't mind going up there. It was Sunday. I said, drive up there on the Sunday, check it out. And it's Gem State Shows or something. It's a promoter that's out of Georgia. And I think I've been to a couple of his shows. He has a few of them up here. And I think it was in Burlington. He does some in North Carolina. I don't think he does any in South Carolina. And they said they were expanding into Tennessee soon, coming in 2026. He's going to promote some shows there. So I said I'd check it out. And it was the Burlington show. There were a couple of them. It's always usually a smaller venue. Okay, in other words, the place that they set up for the show is not that large. Okay, so again, this was a community center or something. We went up there. It was a nice facility. It was a nice hall. Okay. And actually it was a pretty good size hall. They charge you $12 to get in, no discount, and no going 2 days in a row. One of the other local promoters, it's $12, but if you show on your phone the email, you get $1 off. And if you go on Saturday and they stamp your hand, if you don't wash the stamp off your hand, you can come back Sunday and get in for the same fee, which is pretty good. And there's no parking fees. Some venues have a parking fee, some don't. Most don't now anyway. And this place, same thing. Not a problem with parking. So I went into the show, and of course I met an associate of mine, a friend, and a person who subscribed to the channel. He's a collector. He kind of specifically is more towards Civil War collecting and things of that nature. So for him, going to a lot of these shows, he finds very little that interests him. So he was there. It was really quiet. There was hardly any people in there. And one thing, he did have a number of vendors, and one person was selling some kind of pain cream, and you had a couple 2A booths that were trying to raise money and that, and maybe you find somebody raffling something, but there was only one place, a 2A thing where you could go and get a membership or something or donate money. And one guy selling an odd product that wasn't gun related, but surprisingly the rest of it was either guns, knives, or gun accessories. There were several large vendors that were saying per se non-FFL items. In other words, it would be scopes, holsters, AR uppers. Okay, you can sell all the parts you want as long as there ain't no lower receivers. And there were two vendors there, one of them quite large. He had AR uppers in every caliber you could imagine. Okay, and they're all kind of tricked out with fluted barrels and all this other stuff. And they also had a pretty hefty price tag to them, but it was something to look through. Couple dealers, like I said, the one gentleman I know, and a couple other old timers that were in there. Their standard run of stuff, anywhere from Civil War guns to a lot of nice Colts and shotguns and that. There's people that kind of specialize in that stuff. And then of course there was your standard vendors with all the Glocks and every other Smith & Wesson and that, all brand new commercial stuff. And yes, I did find where discount AR-15 guns, they all have a price point, okay? And one fella, he must have had 5 different variants of Radical firearms. Probably the ones that have a smaller handguard than the one I got. But he had a bunch of Radical firearms, 4 bills. Okay, I don't know if that was out the door or not, but still, that's about, ARs are low, and you're seeing it. You'll find somebody at the gun show that will match the price to where, if you're looking for a budget AR, there's a good possibility, even in a small gun show, you can find a deal. Okay, since you paid to get in there. And I went on Sunday, so I don't know how Saturday was. I can see from some tables that there were sales. There was like open space. There was one company way on one side of the building. It looked like they sold a lot of stuff. And actually my wife, an item caught her eye and she was getting all excited over a Kimber lightweight 1911, and it was, we checked it out, out the door, sales tax and everything. That was a solid deal. But I told her, I said, yeah, it's a 1911 45 ACP, but with that light aluminum frame, you may not like the recoil. And she kind of thought about it, but I thought she was going to insist on buying that for herself. She has a thing, with Kimbers. She likes them. She had that little 380 that she has. But so yeah, there were deals there. Okay, there was maybe one large ammunition dealer, and the prices he had were, I could do better off the shelf at a local store than what he was selling some of the stuff for. And a few other people did have ammo. And most of the people I seen that day, you'd see them leave with a little bag with something like, they came here, they paid to get in, they might as well buy something. So a lot of people were buying a few boxes of ammo even. There was a couple gun sales going on. I think the vast majority of them were done Saturday. Like I said, you can see where the way they had their tables set up, there were items that were, gone or sold. They sold some. But my friend was telling me it's, it was sad. It was a sad turnout. It was nice to go to a gun show where you could just leisurely walk about, look over, see things on other tables without tripping over people. It was a very quiet, relaxing day. It was not a huge venue, but they, like I said, they only had 1 or 2 things that were not selling guns or knives. There were some dealers there set up a large display of edge weapons and stuff, knives, pocket knives and that. But that's normal. It's usually gun and knife show. It's a common thing. One individual did have some coins in his display case with things, accessories or handguns or whatever, but he did have some silver. Some of the guys had signs saying that they would buy silver or gold, so that's another venue. In the old days, you used to have coin dealers come up there where you could buy and sell coins or gold and silver bullion. That used to be a thing, but not anymore. And again, we all complain about gun shows not having what we want. In my discussion with people, it all boils down to, okay, the promoters, how they manage the shows, and actually who comes to the venue, okay? Because this was a decent show, but you didn't have any people there really. It was a very, very weak stream of people coming down in, I'd leave and I'd see one or two people coming in and really not a lot of heavy traffic, which was sad because the show was not that terrible. But it would be nice if you had some more vendors. And see, my friend, we're collectors. And a lot of times when you go to a gun show, half of it is beef jerky and shoe polish and, knickknacks. And most of the dealers there are selling brand new retail guns, all the stuff, like I said. People will buy a Glock, a Smith, or a Ruger or something that they have in their head, a gun like that, because to them they know it, the quality, other than say like them SAR pistols, which, they're a bargain and they're a good gun. It's just nobody knows the brand or not familiar with it. They're not really into guns or very casual buyers. And for collectors like me, we're looking for mil surplus or, some older firearms and that. There's really not a lot going on. And to go to these shows, that's the thing. If you had more vendors, more dealers, people coming in, say, from a shop that they picked up used guns where they have some mil surplus or something because they get it in their retail business. That's where the gun shows kind of are cool, and that's why you would travel a distance to go to a show, because there's other people that are local that have a large shop that would come and set up at the show, and generally they'd have their some new stuff, but that's when you catch a lot of people with this used stuff that come into the retail stores or gun shops, and the oddball stuff they try to sell, okay? And that's kind of the fun of the shows, but that's kind of gone. And a lot of the problems, I believe, stem from during the health crisis. They shut everything down for almost a year and a half, okay, or almost 2 years. There were no venues. So these promoters, that's how they make their money. They make their money by securing a location and getting you to purchase the tables and setting up the hall for you to have the gun show in. Well, they were starving. And one thing I was, when we were discussing this, is after that happened, they promote so many gun shows at the same time, and you got competing promoters, that people who set up, it used to be you had a normal setup, like you go to one locale and it's always in a certain month or something, and you'd plan your year out where you'd go to this venue, that venue, and travel across the state and hit these different places. And a lot of the guys who are dealers told me what happens is when they have a conflict, you got two promoters having a gun show the same weekend. And he goes, if I go to this one, and I don't go where I normally used to go for years to this locale, be it Hickory or be it Charlotte or Raleigh, at that certain time or when that show is coming with that promoter. He goes, then my customers show up looking for me and I'm not there. So he goes, they'll just stop coming and they go to the gun show, spend their money, and they're not running into anybody with what they want to look at, be it mill surplus or used firearms. Some people are into the finer guns of double-barreled shotguns and the older, fancier guns. You don't see a lot of that. Or Civil War, the old antiques. There were guys that, they dealt with pre-1898 firearms, all of it, So that you don't see much of anymore, okay? And this is the problem that they have. And I promised that I'd do a good review of this because there was nothing wrong with the show. I mean, if you wanted to pick up a bargain AR, it was there, okay? Along with the fair of Glocks and all the other, new modern stuff. There were some older, a couple of the dealers came. There was some Civil War stuff there. Some, more fancier, older firearms are there. And like I said, if you wanted AR parts, be it buttstocks, uppers, or whatever, there were 2 or 3 dealers there, scopes, reflex sights, and everything, short of the gun itself. There was a good selection and variety there. A little sparse on the ammo, like I said, you only had about 2 or 3 people. It would have been nicer if you had another ammo guy up there. He was selling stuff anywhere from a single box to cases also. And, a couple other just local shops that had some decent deals. So it was good. It was a good little show, It's just like I said, it's kind of weird when you go there and there's no people. And it's like really, really quiet, But they got another one coming up in Hickory in a couple weeks. I don't know if I'd go to it. I may just to check and see how that one is compared to C&E is having one in Hickory this weekend. And I may go to that show. It'll be close to almost a 2-hour drive for me to get there, but I haven't been to it. I went to it many years ago a few times, and I met a lot of, decent people because it was more local to them. I met other collectors and some people there, and I haven't been to that show in many years. I'm going to check it out. So, that's the gun show report. I may have another one coming up in a week. If you are local here and you see those Gem State shows, be it Burlington, Hickory, or where else, give them a try. It's a halfway decent venue. They get people in there. I'd like to see who comes to them or who specifically goes to this promoter. And see how it works. Alright, thank you. Please subscribe and hit the like button and stay tuned.